Oh, ho, ho, ho. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Good to be with you, everybody. Good to be seen on In the Car with Star on this kind of normalized Monday. The deep freeze in the Great White North we call home, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, is over. Hope you enjoyed your best minus 45-degree weather. Because honestly, I don't know what y'all did, but I tried my best to not go anywhere, stay indoors for as much as I possibly could in the aftermath of what was the coldest weekend in Montreal in about 15 years. We are here. Thanks for joining us live on YouTube at Sean Starr, and of course, Facebook.com/InTheCarWithStar, where you can subscribe, and hit that notifications button. That way you're never going to miss anything that comes from any of our channels. And of course, it would be appreciated if you subscribe to our channels, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, I should say, if you're listening to us just on audio. Fresh off All-Star Weekend, you guys, and are you fed up with the constant demographic of the 40-year-old, late 30-year-old hockey fan in your life telling you how crap and how boring the NHL All-Star Game is? Because quite frankly, I've had it up to where for the last, 10 years. It's the annual right. We get Fred Lamarmont, R.I.P., who died on Groundhog's Day. Man, oh man, that was kind of funny and yet tragic at the same time. I digress. That every year I feel like we relive NHL All-Star Game Groundhog Day, where you get people of a certain age, usually it's the past their 20-point hockey fan in your life, that likes to tell you how crap, how boring, how unimaginative, how uninventive the All-Star Game is, how much better it was back in our day. And you get all of those, whether they're calling into radio shows, whether they're texting into radio stations, whether they're having conversations with you because you're their buddy sports fan, or whether they're jumping on social media and telling anybody that's willing to listen how lame the All-Star Game is. Look, I don't know why I have to say this, but I feel like I do. The All-Star Game, everybody, is not for us anymore. It's not for us anymore. That doesn't mean that it can't still be better at the same time. So look, all full cards on the table here. Did I rally around the TV set on Friday night to watch the skills competition when it was minus 45 degrees outside and nobody's going outside? No, I didn't rally around my television set and watch the skills competition. Did I tune in on Saturday afternoon a little bit to see the All-Star Game play itself out? Okay, fine. I tuned in a little bit because I was flipping around. It was 3 o'clock, and I was waiting to see what was going on. What are my options? So I tuned in. I wanted to watch for just a second. But it doesn't mean that the NHL All-Star Game can be flat like a left-out overnight soda on the kitchen countertop. It doesn't mean it can be better. It can be better, but I think we need to distinguish a couple of things here. One, the NHL skills competition in the game really isn't for us anymore. It's for us when we were 12 years old, when we were 13 years old. And ask yourself this question. If you're dumping on the All-Star Game, oh, how bad it is, blah, 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 blah. Let me ask you something. Would 13-year-old version of yourself kick you in the ass right now for having such a ludicrous opinion? The answer is probably yes. So how do we make this better? How do we make this better? How can we get more engaged? How can we get more involved? Is there a way to do this that we're coming here, talking together in the aftermath of a NHL All-Star Weekend saying, you know what? The league actually got it right for once. Well, there are a couple of things that come to mind immediately. If your kid is watching the All-Star Game, they're watching the skills competition, they want to see fastest shot, fastest skater, so on and so forth. The traditional, what makes it fun. And quite frankly, I have no problem with the All-Star Game like it was in Vegas with the fountain stuff, or where they're in South Florida doing pitch and puck, in which Nick Suzuki won. We'll talk about that in a second. But ultimately, I have no problem with the NHL kind of playing to its geography, kind of where it's at, right? And playing up that angle like they did in South Florida, like they did in Vegas. That's cool. Fine. It's all good, right? But there are ways for us, the older hockey fan, for it to still be engaging. And that's allowing some of these players to show their personalities, allowing them to breathe, allowing them not to be timid or gun shy, microphone shy, so to speak, when it's their opportunity, allowing these players to embrace their personalities, showing their personalities, and us hearing a little bit more. Because since I was a little kid, and it's still true to this day now that I'm an old man, I always loved the behind the scenes, players mic'd up. What are they saying when they leave the playing field? What's going on in the locker room, in the clubhouse, yada, yada, yada. I've always been a curious sports fan in that regard, especially when it comes to the players and their lifestyles. What do they wear? What kind of house or condo or loft do they have? What kind of car do they drive? Where do they like to go to eat? I like all that stuff. So there has to be a way where we can incorporate some of that personality, where these players are mic'd up, that they're having these conversations, and we get these funny anecdotes, and allowing these players and their personalities to shine. The other idea that actually might work, considering that the NHL and the NFL had their all-star game weekends at the same time, maybe there's a way to do a cross-sport kind of gimmick between the NFL, having some guys come out and taking wrist shots or taking making passes to a player trying to do accuracy shooting, or the football players themselves doing some sort of accuracy shooting. And the same on the other side of the coin for NHL players, maybe trying to do throw a football with accuracy, little drills, trying to find wide receivers, hit them in stride, hitting moving targets. There are ways to incorporate a little bit more entertainment value for our demographic. I'm not talking about the 12-year-old. When I was a 12-year-old hockey fan, I loved NHL All-Star Weekend. I loved the skills competition. I love the skills competition more than anything else. A little less into the game, but definitely into the skills competition. So how can we make this more engaging? So if the NFL and the NHL are going to have their All-Star weekends run simultaneously, let's see if there's room on this leash here. And honestly, I think it would be the NFL be willing to let the NHL into their showcase, into their weekend. The NFL doesn't need any publicity, certainly doesn't need any publicity from a niche sport like the National Hockey League, but it's just one idea. It's just one idea that to me is more entertaining than sitting on your couch, punching keys on your laptop, telling social media how crap and how boring the All-Star game is. It ain't for us, baby. It ain't for you. It's for your kids. It's for the 12-year-old. But there are ways that you can bring the adults in and have it a little bit more entertaining. So, I don't know, maybe there's a little bit of a mashup there. Got a feel for Nick Suzuki, who won the pitch and puck. So this is what I was talking about. It's kind of gimmicky, playing in South Florida, all their golf courses. So they had a pitch and puck. You're putting a golf ball with a hockey stick. Nick Suzuki, my friends, sank the winning putt, and for that gets himself, drum roll please, 1 year worth of Chipotle Mexican Grill. Breaking news: Chipotle does not have any locations in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. As a matter of fact, they don't have a single location in Quebec. How a city like London, Ontario can have a Chipotle, but a metropolitan destination like Montreal does not have one. Anyone from the office de la langue française, grillade Mexicain, Chipotle, restaurant grillade? I mean, we have second cup here, for goodness sake. How do we not have a Chipotle here? But all this to say that, if I'm a fan at a game and my number gets called, congrats, Sean Starr, come down to center ice, put the puck through the little hole, and you're going to win Chipotle for a year. I'm like, man, that is awesome. Nick Suzuki makes $7.875 million a year. Does Nick Suzuki get excited about Chipotle? Does Nick Suzuki get excited about Chipotle playing in a city that doesn't even have a Chipotle chain? I mean, what are you going to do here? And also, is it a gift card? How does this work? He goes into a Chipotle, so he's on the road. The Canadians are playing in Arizona somewhere. He's in Glendale, and there's a Chipotle next to the rink. How does that work? Does he have a card? Does he have a phone number? Does he have an email he has to show the cashier? I'm fascinated by all this. And is there an allowance? Okay, you only get $200 a month to eat at Chipotle. You can't go over that. I have so many questions about this. And in all honesty, what do you think? You think when Nick Suzuki sunk the winning putt to win himself the Chipotle Championship of the World and a year's worth of Chipotle food for free, that Nick Suzuki was stoked? He was happy about this? It was a little embarrassing. It was a little embarrassing, maybe, an NHL player, a multi-million-dollar player, is getting free fast food. Fast food, It's fast food. The captain of the Montreal Canadiens has a year of it for free. I hope he gives it away. I hope he gives it to his parents or something like that. Give it to Nick Suzuki doesn't need Chipotle. I'll tell you one thing though: the Montreal Canadiens need a trade. The Canadiens need to start making a move here. And I don't know if Joel Edmondson is the guy that's going to be dealt. I don't know if Joel Edmondson is going to bring anything back of value, because we're getting closer here, guys. It's March 3rd. NHL trade deadline's March 3rd. Here we are talking to each other on this 6th day of February. Finally, Super Bowl week is here, and Joel Edmondson's still a Canadian. Josh Anderson is still a Canadian. Like, remember, Ben Sherrod a year ago. Ben Sherrod had 7 goals and 11 assists for 18 points in just over 54 games. Like, Joel Edmondson has, 4 goals in, his last 70 games combined. And I get Joel Edmondson is a different player than Ben Sherrod, but their career highs in points are almost identical. Like, Ben Sherrod's career high in points was 21. Joel Edmondson is 20. So there is some offense there. I was going to say offensive dynamic, but I'm not going to go that far. Joel Edmondson doesn't have any dynamics when it comes to generating offense. He's got 1 goal and 3 points, 1 goal and 3 assists this season for 4 points. I think it's time to leave the station, guys. The Joel Edmondson for a first-round pick coming back this way, I don't think it's happening. Prochaine arrêt, second-round pick maybe. Or you're going to have to start throwing in if Ken Hughes really wants that third-round pick. Because, Ben Sherrod had 7 goals and was a dynamic player in the 54 games before he got dealt out to Florida. And maybe there's this element of play that general managers in the NHL look at Joel Edmondson, they look at Ben Sherrod, and they're like, well, they're almost kind of like the same guy, other than Joel Edmondson has a year left on his current deal where Ben Sherrod was a rent-a-player. So I'm less and less inclined to think that Ken Hughes is going to get that third first-round pick this summer by trading Joel Edmondson. Costa in the comments. Kalimara, Sean, ti canis, re? Kala. Ella do, Costas. Ella do. So let's get going. Y'all think Ken Hughes is going to get this third first-round pick that he says that he wants? I don't think it's going to happen. And even though the Calgary Flames are in hot pursuit of Josh Anderson, Ken Hughes has said that teams are calling, teams are inquiring. Calgary wants Josh Anderson. Done. They want him. They wanted him yesterday. They want him tomorrow. They want him next week if he's still on the board. They want Josh Anderson big time. Fine. Cool. It's February 6th today. You can tell me until you're blue in the face that you want Josh Anderson. Talk is cheap. Where's the check? Let's see you sign that check and trade for Josh Anderson. So I'd love to see Ken Hughes in what I believe is a master negotiator. Squeeze the Flames. Squeeze the Flames. Tell them you have 2 teams. Lie to them. Tell them you have 2 teams already kicking tires in Josh Anderson. Tell them one of those teams has already submitted an offer slightly better than yours, but I love working with you, Calgary. I want you, Calgary, to have this guy. Let's see if we can work out a deal. Let's get things in play here. Because I don't think Josh Anderson gets dealt between now and March 3rd. As I said last week, I think we're talking about a Josh Anderson transaction likely on draft day on the draft floor. And I hope Josh Anderson, when the day comes that he does get moved, he uses accentgroup.com to move his precious cargo from point A to point B, because nobody in the transportation and logistics business has their heads on tighter, straighter, more hyper-focused than my friends at Accent and accentgroup.com. Call them for more information, 888-99-ACCENT, or online at accentgroup.com. They have the knowledge and the assets to get your freight to its destination on time and on budget. So whether we're staying domestically here in Canada or we're moving cross-border, trust nobody with your precious cargo more than you would trust Accent, accentgroup.com. Call them 888-99-ACCENT. So now that the Montreal Canadiens season will resume on Saturday of this week with their first of a Super Bowl weekend matinee. They're playing Saturday against the Islanders. Sunday, they take on the Edmonton Oilers. And then we've got Super Bowl 57 to look forward to, and very much anxious to see how that all sorts out. Of course, right here at In the Car with Star, we'll have it fully covered for you all week long, including a special broadcast on Sunday in the hours leading up to Super Bowl 57 with Kansas City and the Philadelphia Eagles. I am starting to believe more and more as we do get closer to kickoff on Super Bowl Sunday this week that the last team to have the ball is likely going to be the team that wins it. I do like the over. So if you're looking for an early play, an early lean, the over is one direction. I think we're going to get over 50 points in this game. How about the Stanley Cup winners versus the rest of the league? Costa throwing out all-star game suggestions. Here's the thing about that. Like they used to do in the old days of hockey, the Stanley Cup winner and the Stanley Cup winning team would take on a collective group of all-stars from the rest of the NHL. Those two teams would meet up, and that would be your all-star game. How would you feel under that hypothetical? The Montreal Canadiens are coming off a Stanley Cup. The Canadiens won the Stanley Cup this past summer, and as a direct result, the Montreal Canadiens, as they're currently constituted, have to take on a collection of all-stars from around the NHL. At the end of all of this, Costa and everybody else that has these ideas, me, as a fan of the game and a fan of a team, I do not want my team playing a competitive game in the All-Star game. I don't. There are too many teams in the league now, and that, winning the Stanley Cup is harder than it's ever been and only getting more challenging. And so, I don't need Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki busting their ass in a meaningless exhibition game to prove a point. And I'm not exactly sure what it would prove. Okay, the Canadiens won the Stanley Cup, and I'm supposed to be more impressed that not only did they win the Stanley Cup, they followed that up by beating a collection of NHL All-Stars in an exhibition game where one wrong move here or there and somebody gets hurt, and now what? You're dealing with that? I think there's a way to navigate that. And look, I think we also need to understand here that the All-Star game, while it's for the kids, it's not for us anymore. It's for the corporate overlords of the National Hockey League and all their sponsors and all those fat cats in their fat suits sitting there, rubbing elbows, networking, all that different stuff. As we've all gotten older and understand a little bit better how the world works, we understand that. So I've decided I'm over it. I'm over the fact that the All-Star game doesn't move the needle for me anymore. I'm over that because they're not marketing it to me. It's not for me. But it doesn't mean that it can't be a little bit more for me and for you. And having these players mic'd up and having these players show their personality, having funny anecdotes. How is it that a sport like golf could have a guy like Max Homa mic'd up while he's trying to win a golf tournament? He's delivering zingers. He's delivering one-liners. He's talking in real time. In the midst of trying to win, $1 million purse, Max Homa is able to do that. In golf, goodness gracious, if golf could do it, if golf could make it work, come hell or high water, I have to choose to believe the National Hockey League could make this work and could encourage their players to show some personalities that make it relatable to the older fan like you or I. Because what are you doing? I don't want to be harsh, but if you're in your 40s and you're going on Twitter bitching about how lame the All-Star game is, I got to tell you, it ain't the All-Star game that's lame, brother. So that's it. That's kind of I want to see an NFL, NHL player mashup. I want to see Sidney Crosby throwing spirals through tires. I want to see Patrick Mahomes, if he's not in the Super Bowl, trying to hit targets from a stationary position. I'm not putting Patrick Mahomes on skates or anything. I'm putting him on a carpet somewhere between the face-off dots in the offensive zone. I'm saying, Patrick, here, take some wristers, hit some targets. That's what I want to see. Something a little fun. Make it a little bit more cross-sport. We can have some fun with this because that's ultimately what we're talking about here. And by the way, if you just missed it, Kyrie Irving did in fact get traded out to Dallas. I've purposely avoided Kyrie Irving. I've purposely avoided talking about him. I don't want to say his name. I don't want to, even though I don't have a popular podcast in terms of the podcast world and who's watching and all that stuff. So I know if I say Kyrie Irving's name, I know it's not going to go gangbusters. I know I'm not going to get huge numbers if I say or don't say his name. I just don't like him. I just don't like him at all. So I'm going to break my own rule. I'm going to talk about Kyrie for a second. as Kyrie goes to Dallas to team up with Luka Doncic in a hope to make a playoff run. It was interesting that the owner of the Brooklyn Nets, Joe Tsai, basically said that he's willing to accommodate any trade proposal Kyrie Irving has, just not to the LA Lakers, because that was the one team that Kyrie wanted to get traded to. Kyrie wanted to go to LA to team up with LeBron so they can ring it up one more time together. Well, as it turns out, not so fast. Kyrie's going to Dallas to team up with Luka Doncic. Am I worried about Luka Doncic blowing his top, losing that room, not being the prolific scorer that he is? No, not so much. Like, as much as I dislike Kyrie, and I do dislike Kyrie Irving, and there are not a lot of athletes I would honestly say that about, but I do have a strong dislike for him, that Kyrie is used to playing with dominant players, right? Like we finished talking about Kyrie playing with LeBron. Kyrie is teamed up with James Harden. Kyrie just finished coming off playing with Kevin Durant. Now is going to another prolific scorer with Luka Doncic. The question I would ask is Luka Doncic going to be okay in this sample size here of maybe not scoring 30 every night, with another premier player in the league getting the ball, dishing out, scoring? Like, Kyrie averages close to 30 points a night. So does Luka, so, but like I said, Kyrie has played with guys that love the rock, guys that love to score and everything else. It'll be curious to see how Luka adjusts to life with Kyrie and everything else. But as we've known now for quite some time, Kyrie Irving and teammates, no matter where he is in the NBA, it's a short fuse. This is not an everlasting light that burns indefinitely for Kyrie Irving. So I'd be lying if I told you that I wish him nothing but the best and nothing but success for the Dallas Mavericks. That, my friends, would be a bold-faced lie. And we don't do that on In the Car with Star, a proud presentation of Axon. AxonGroup.com. They have the knowledge and the assets to get your freight to its destination on time, with their assets and their knowledge and their expertise in the logistical space. Check them out at AxonGroup.com or call them for more information, 888-99-AXON. Hope you had time to get out to K-Stop Gas Bar this weekend. They're a proud sponsor of In the Car with Star. I was there. I gassed up. I snacked up. Yeah, so what? I had a Hostess Twinkie. Who cares? You can get them at K-Stop Gas Bar, Highway 138 in Ganawagi, where their gas bar is open 24 hours a day. That's right, my friends. We're talking premium fuel at discount prices. The premium fuel, if you're getting that 94 octane, what you get at the big corporations, significantly cheaper, more affordable. Finally, we found something that is more affordable in this ever-expensive world of ours. Affordability at K-Stop Gas Bar in Depanneur, Highway 138 in Ganawagi, a locally owned and operated business in Ganawagi, right on a Highway 138. It's the third traffic light. You can't miss it, next to that gigantic poker hall. And they've got freshly prepared meals. Their menu changes every single day, and their gas bar, premium fuel at discount prices, is open 24 hours a day. It is Super Bowl week. We'll be back all week long with some perspective on what we think is going to happen this Sunday for Super Bowl 57. And then ultimately, the Montreal Canadiens back in action this weekend. Yeah, so they're off all week. Habs back in action Saturday and Sunday afternoon. All the action live on TSN 690. So hit me up in the comments. What do you think? What do you think about the NHL NFL mashup all-star game? Let's see Patrick Mahomes with an accuracy shooting competition. Let's see Sidney Crosby throw footballs to targets, throw them through tires. Let's go. This is how we make the All-Star Game that much more exciting. Don't forget, you can always like and subscribe to all our channels on YouTube.com or Facebook.com and iHeart and everywhere else you get your podcast. In the Car with Star, a proud presentation of Axon, AxonGroup.com, and K-Stop Gas Bar and Depanneur.